Hi besties, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little bit of a long time. Last time I updated you guys was my reading journal. I didn't get to do January TBR. I'm not gonna lie, I was going through it. I was not feeling myself, and there was just a lot of like other factors, but I'm finally feeling like I'm back to getting on the right track again. I am drinking some tea because my throat is very sore, but I really wanted to get this out to you guys and really make like content and be happy and get back to routine. So first things first, since I didn't do a January wrap up, I wasn't able to show you guys my February TBR. My February TBR was a mixture of print books and Kindle books that I was like really interested in, or I felt like they've been on my TBR for a very long time, and I was like, I need to get them out. So let's start with the physical books. So first on my TBR from last month was Bridgerton's Offer from a Gentleman, considering that season 4 just came out and it's so good. I was like, I need to read the book. I need to read the book in order to like watch the series, because I did that last season with Penelope and Colin and I enjoyed it, and we're gonna get into that. The second book on my TBR was Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. And then we had Unraked by David Daly. I had picked this book up in my library back in Indy, and I thought it was really interesting considering it was written around the time the first presidency in 2016, and considering what's happening today, I thought it'd be best to like educate myself. And then we have Promises of Pomegranates by Savor Miller, because I love a good Hades Persephone retelling. And then Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, because again, balls of the book, and I knew it was very popular and I really want to get into it. And then lastly, for my physical books, it was Wildcard by Elsie Silver. This is a book that I bought with this one, and I thought it was interesting. I really wanted to get into it. So for my Kindle TBR, I had an arc that I had gotten approved, which was As I Grow by Elle Rivers, and I knew that I wanted to read it this month. And then I really wanted to read Mates by Ali Hazelwood. I had it on my Libby hold and it had finally became available, so I was like, I need to read it for February. Then we had Guardian Temptation by Talia Hibbard. Thought that was that's been on my like TBR for about 2 years, so we're trying to like get that down. We have Black Ties and White Lies. Again, book that I've had on my Kindle forever, needed to get it off. And then we have Red Zone by Lisa Suzanne. Worth the Try by Valerie Pepper. I think this is a book that I just like saw interesting on my Kindle, and I was like, I need to go grab that. Bluebird Gold by Devney Perry. Devney Perry is one of my favorite authors. She's always like an automatic read for me. Duke by Jessica Peterson. I think I had read the first 2 books in the series, and I really wanted to continue on. And then Show Me You Remember by Hannah Coleman, because I had read the first one, Show Me How, and I was like, this is kind of an interesting book. So that was my February TBR. And so, drum roll. I'm doing merengue drums in my head, but it's going to be like regular drums in edit. Lauren, you get me? For the month of February, I read 13 books. All of them romance, of course. That is 4,216 pages. Out of those, 3 were physical and 10 were digital or e-reads. And my average rating for this month, very low, was 2.88. That brings my yearly total to 26 books, which means we are slowly moving towards my goal to 150. That means we are literally almost 20% done with my goal in the first 2 months of 2026, and I think that we are moving at a great pace. So let's talk about what I did read for the month. The very first book that I read for February was Red Zone by Lisa Suzanne. I think I had just finished something on my Kindle, and I was like, I need something else on my Kindle. Anyway, first book was Red Zone by Lisa Suzanne, and I ended up rating this book 2.75 stars. I'm looking at my notes. It's a very like lengthy. I said, I don't know. They fell in love pretty quickly. I hate I'm sorry. I hate hypocritical main characters because you know he had trauma, which prevented him from being vulnerable. And um, I hate to agree with the man, but you keep blaming Maverick, the male main character, for something that you know is wrong. There was a third act breakup, and if you know me, I hate third act breakups. And it would have just been like a regular book that I didn't love, but I liked. But the third act breakup, which came out of nowhere and it didn't have any logic in it, made me take it down to a 2.75. Because I can understand certain breakups for like plot reasons or anything, but this one just like didn't make any sense to um, for them to break up, considering how openly communicative they were in the beginning. Second book that I read for February was Come What May by Corinne Michaels. I had read her um, first book in that series, All Too Well. I actually have it, like own it. And I think it was suggested to me to read it because I had read it before. And I ended up rating this one a 3 as well. I ended up rating this a 3. I didn't know what to expect from the book. I didn't read um, any bio, any summary of the book. I just went in with the book because I was like, I'm ready for my next one. And I think that it was just like an okay plot. It wasn't anything too egregious or, no, it wasn't anything too egregious. Egregious? Egregious. Is that the word? Anyway, it was just a plain plot line, but then we find out that, and it's not a spoiler, we find out that the male main character is the female main character's best friend's dad. Now, granted, it's a biological dad, but it's not like a father, if that makes any sense. It's just that he was a sperm donor. But it was not, it was such a main plot device of them like not being together, and I really truly don't think that it was as big of a deal as it was made to seem. It truly could have been, it should have been like definitely discussed, but I don't think that it made sense for that to be the reason that they broke up. There's a lot happening in the book, but her best friend's her best friend's dad, I don't know how to explain it. The male main character being her best friend's dad isn't the reason why they should have broke up, and I think that's why it just stayed as a 3, because it could have been definitely a 4. I was like really involved in this book. I read it in a day, maybe a day and a half, and yeah, it was just like, oh, why would you choose that route? Alright, then the next book I read was Promise You Sunshine by Cara Basone. It's been on my TBR for a good couple of months, and every time I'm like, I'm gonna read it, I never do. So I was like, you gotta sit down and read this book, girl. It was just such a well-written story. It was heartbreaking to have to watch this woman fall apart because of her best friend's death. And granted, like, she didn't know it was coming, but just knowing that you have to move on with your life while the very reason why you are who you are isn't going along for the ride is heartbreaking. And I like that we never lost that plot. Like, there are some stories where you'll find somebody like grieving and there's someone who wants to help, but instead of allowing them to process grief in the way that it does, they focus too much on living life and not about moving, like the process of not forgetting who that person was, like not forgetting why you were grieving in the first place. And not only do we have like that story, we have like him just trying to fit into his family. Who is it? Miles is trying to fit into his family that he like never had before, and learning new things and trying new things. And it's just like, it's a romance. I don't know how to describe it. It's like, it feels more like a literal fiction with like a romance subplot. Like, they fell in love so slowly and then all at once, and then it was just like, it's just a really good book. I don't know. So I did rate this like 4.25 stars. It was just, yes, this book was so good. That's all I can say about it. That's all I can say. Um, and then I read that arc by um, As I Grow by Elle Rivers. And I I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Um, this book was 500 pages. I never I always have the belief that no romance book should be over like 400, in just my personal opinion, unless it really needs unless like the entire storyline calls for it to be over 400. But I was 150, 160 pages into the book, and I really didn't feel like anything was happening with either of the characters by themselves or them together. I don't know. I was just like very bored. And then after I was bored, we got a lot, and I mean very much, like the entire, like the last like 300, next 300 pages were just constant miscommunication and not truly, like, not wanting to understand the other person, which makes it very upsetting because it's a pregnancy book. It's like that's the whole plot line of the book. And I don't know, I don't know. I really wanted to enjoy it. I like the whole reason why I said it to be an ARC reader was because I was like, oh my god, I love a pregnancy trope. I love a small town pregnancy trope. But no, I gave it 2.5 stars. The next book I read was Wildcard by Elsie Silver. I love Elsie Silver. She's been like one of my favorite authors since I've started reading it again. And this was a really cute story. This was like really, really interesting. Um, I I love their first like little meet cute and the airport and missing like the one digit and the miscommunication, like not communication, the misconnection that they had, and um just like how they, like, the universe kept trying to bring them together even like a year after that first meet cute. It was a really interesting story. There was some issues, but they were both mature enough to talk about it right away instead of like letting it stew and then letting it get bigger than it actually was. And I just don't know. I enjoyed this. I really did. I really enjoyed this book. I wrote down 4 stars for this, but I think I'm gonna have to bump it up to 4.5. I'm not gonna lie. Like, look at this. Look at that. That is such cute art. I read this in one sitting. This was so good. I Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That was like such a good book, and I'm gonna recommend it to everybody. That's one of the ones I'm recommending. The next book I read was Just Our Luck by Denise Williams. I don't think this one was on my TBR at all, and it was a really cute story. There was some craziness about it, but I think like the chaotic plot line made sense for the characters, and I enjoyed that. It like made me kind of like follow their story a little bit better. Um, there's something that happens in the third act, and I'm just like shocked. I'm like, I can't believe it happened, and it just never gets like brought up again. Like, it happens. There's like a huge like initial scene and initial upset about it, and then it never, like, we never talk about it again. It's just like, oh, okay, we're just like skipping past that. Okay. I gave that one a 3.25. The next book was Worth a Try by Valerie Pepper. This one was a recommendation by Kindle, I believe, like books that you might like. And I didn't write any notes about this, and I'm not gonna lie, I could barely remember it, but there was Elodie who was just tired of being like treated as nice. Like, she had just gotten fired from her job. Her boyfriend had broken up. She was kind of like listless, and I think she had gotten like evicted from her house as well. And then she goes sees her best friend who is working at this rugby stadium, and ends up becoming a nanny for the captain. And it's a good story from what I can remember. I think I ended up just like not having any issues with the characters. They clearly were able to talk about it. There was like an outsider who was trying to force their way into a relationship, but they stood as a united front, and I really enjoyed that. So there was nothing that like took me out of the story, but I just wasn't in love with the characters. I wasn't in love with like everything that was going on. So I just ended up rating it a 3. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't like my favorite book of all time. The next book I read was Against the Odds by Brittany Kelly. I didn't realize at the time that it was a novella, or maybe not a novella, but it was a very short story. It was like 145 pages, and it was
Be nice. I'm finding it. It take you that long to find it? It does.
I don't know how to describe it. It was just not my favorite. It was a second chance romance, but we never even understood why they broke up in the first place, or like how they broke up. It was just like, oh, we were together at this point in time, and oh my gosh, you're the same person as you were, and I can recognize you. It's like we never even left each other, and so they slide back into a relationship over a blizzard. And when I say a blizzard, it was like 2 days. So they went from not seeing each other in almost a decade to being in love with each other in 2 days. And we never really got like the backstory. So I personally didn't love that. Like, there was no, here's what we're gonna do differently, here's like what happened. It was just like, I know you like the back of my head, but how can you when it's been 10 years since the last time you saw each other? I think that's like my issue. I rated it a 2. It wasn't my favorite. The next book that I read was Duke by Jessica Peterson. This book was, I said this book was very, very cute. I didn't go into this book with any expectations. I just knew that I had read some of the previous books in the series, and I said I'm gonna read this one. I wasn't expecting the pregnancy trope, and I enjoyed it. It was also like nice to see that Wheeler, the female main character, was able to have some self-realization about her own insecurities, as well as Duke, the male main character. And I thought it was like interesting to see that they were maturing, but also with each other. Like, they were like hyping each other up in a sense, like, yeah, girl, like, I support you, I support your business, I'm always gonna be here for you. But in return, she was like, Duke, I got you, I got your back. Like, you might be the outsider in your family, but I understand where you're coming from. We are of the same like mind. And so I thought that was a really interesting aspect of the book. There were, I said I love the found family aspect. However, it felt very surface level. I was like kind of waiting for more. I was hoping for a deeper understanding of each other. But the book was like, it was a good read, and I gave it 3 stars. The next book was Show Me You Remember by Hannah Cohen, and I enjoyed this book, but I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit confused by the timeline. I believe that it was not a second chance romance, but it was like right person, wrong time. And then, because the male main character, Ro, ends up going to jail. But the jail, I don't know. It's just like it was like a little bit confusing, and I wish it was like explained clearly to me. Maybe I just like missed it, but I definitely didn't understand like the point of him going to jail and the point of the return, or like how I don't know. Anyway, it was a really good book. I did, or I'm gonna lie, I anticipated the twist like 25% into the book, and I was right. So it was a little bit like weird having that plot line kind of like spoiled by my own mind. It was promoted as them being like enemies to lovers. Like, she was the reason why he went into jail, and so he hates her. But it was more just like sexual tension. Like, they just needed to fucking get out of the way.
What did you say?
Don't say it again.
I said you two need a bone.
I mean, like, it was just it was just like weird. I was expecting more animosity. I was expecting more enemies to lovers, but it was really more like strangers to lovers, or not even strangers. It was just like discontent with each other, or more so him with her, all because of a misunderstanding, by the way, which is what I hate about it. And then we had Big Bet by Cassie Ment. This has also been on my TBR for about a good couple of years. I can't even lie to you. It was advertised as the Insta love, but it wasn't, because by my terms, by like what I think of Insta love. They were already, when we introduce ourselves to the female main character, she is insisting that she has a crush on the male main character. Can't remember the names right now. And so it was it was a novella, which I didn't anticipate. I don't know why I wasn't looking at that. It was a novella of them having crushes and having like love bombing each other, not in like a bad sense, but like they went from like crushes to dating in a matter of like 10 pages, if that. Um, I said also the descriptions were all over the place. I wasn't sure if he was big, like a lumberjack big, or if he was big as in plus size. Because it was like hard to, she didn't really describe them in any good way. She kept saying that the purse size, or the female main character had voluptuous curves, but then she was also like a showgirl, and was like, I don't know how to explain it, but it definitely felt like she was just saying she had like boobs and an ass and not like plus size, and then the man was like broad but not big. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like we need to, it's a novella, but you need to be able to use scriptures. You need to be able to like clearly communicate to the audience how your characters look. And I didn't love it, so that got a 1.5. And then I read Guarding Temptation, another novella. It was 100 pages, and it was set in London. It was short but long at the same time, and by that I mean the actual length of the book was short, but the characters and the plot seemed to drag on forever. Like, I was waiting for them to get to the point. I was like, pick up the pace, it's a novella, you know, and I should never have to like feel that way. And I didn't love the characters, I'm not gonna lie, so that got a 1.5 out of me. And then finally, you guys, I read Bridgerton, An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. I read this as of the day that I'm filming. It is Saturday the 28th. It's probably going to go up tomorrow, hopefully. I read this the Tuesday because it was after work, I remember. And I finished it on Wednesday when I was finally buying a car, you guys. Another story. So I read this in a day. Literally the next day, on Thursday, season 4 came out. I rated this 4.5 stars. This was so good. As I was reading this, I had already watched season 4, part 1, and I could tell that they stuck very, very closely to the story, and I was really appreciative of that. But I just love the book. Benedict and Sophie are just so well put together. Maybe that's it for the whole series, but I love Sophie's like not innocence but admiration for the higher class and her aspirations of like being a part of something more than what she is. But she's also true to herself. She knows that she's an illegitimate child. She knows that her place is with the downstairs people, with the maids and the servants and the ladies in waiting and all of that. And she's never not in denial about who she is. And it was just like so cute. Benedict gets out of that second brother storyline that he wants to break a part of. He loves his family, but he doesn't want to be considered the spare, the second. And having like this woman that he aspires to be. I will say that the difference between this and the show is that the masquerade ball happens sometime in 1815, and he doesn't meet Sophie again until 1817 in the countryside. And she's the one who almost gets raped. And just like a little bit other like aspects that are different, but it's also like very interesting how closely they followed along with the show. And I love like their like innocence. The one thing it would have been 5 stars. It would have been 5 stars. But at one point Sophie is like telling Benedict, I don't want to be a mistress. I don't want to be in the same position that my mother was in and then had an illegitimate child like I am. And Benedict Black. And it's not funny because it's like, this is what would have happened in the history, but he's like, you're going to be my mistress. I'm going to take you to my mother's house and you're going to be in my presence whatever I say. So he basically kidnaps her. He basically like blackmails her into being around him. And I don't know, it's kind of like interesting that it like is very different because like we wouldn't see Benedict in the show do that, but it was a really good book. I'm not gonna lie, I love the writing. I loved, like, I was sitting here like, oh my god, and what happens next? Oh my god, she's in jail. So yes, very, very good, very, very recommend. And yeah, that was my February wrap up. I don't know what I'm going to read for March. I don't have a TBR planned. I don't have anything like in writing. I was going to do a TBR, but I'm just not. I think I'm just going to go with vibes this month and see what happens, and we'll go from there. So that was my February wrap up. I don't know if I'm going to do anything else today. I might do some journaling, and if I do, I'm going to enter it right here. And then if not, I'm so happy you guys continue to watch my content. I have like a little bit more plans now that I have my new car. I'm probably going to be out more and more, making more content for you guys. And I'm hoping that I can roll out maybe 2 more videos this month. But thank you guys so much for watching. And if you have read any of the books that I've read, or if you have any suggestions for May, please like leave them down in the comments, leave down your thoughts, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Alright, bye besties.